Hello. I saw an interview with Megyn Kelly a few days ago, and the interviewer was asking her about the post-election situation in the United States and the fact that the media were celebrating Biden's victory even before there was any basis for it, and complaining about Trump's inability to accept defeat, even though there really are some serious allegations of fraud. And they were ignoring the concerns and worries of a very substantial part of the population, even at the worst case. Even if Biden had won, the margin is very low. It's at least almost half of the American population. And the media are treating these groups as if they were some sort of lunatic fringe. And the worst is, even Fox News seems to be succumbing to this general climate of opinion. He asked her about this and also about the cheating that definitely has been going on, which they, as I said, are deliberately ignoring. He didn't say this, but I thought of it like those journalists standing in front of those burning cars, talking into the microphone and saying that there was no signs of riots. It's all been mostly peaceful demonstrations. And, you could see it going on behind them. And they expect you to actually believe what they're saying. And some do, with that going behind them. It's a very weird situation. And as for the cheating, it doesn't matter whether or not the cheating was on a sufficient scale to determine the outcome of the election. What matters is that the media seem to have reached a consensus that there was no cheating at all, and that Trump is a dictator and his followers all a bunch of fascists unable to come to grips with the democratic process. And the interviewer asked her if she thought that the Democratic Party and the media were actually coordinating. By the way, I think this was Dave Rubin, but now it was a while ago and I don't remember which interviewer it was, but I'm pretty sure it was Dave Rubin talking to her. Megyn Kelly replied that it wasn't like a coordinated attack. It's just that all these people go to the same book launches, the same parties, the same restaurants, the same events, the same meetings, and they stand around the same water coolers in breaks. And then when one of them says something like, "Oh, did you hear what Trump said last night? What a horrible racist, homophobe, misogynist," or whatever, she points out that nobody who wants people to talk to them thereafter is going to ask, well, what exactly did he say that was racist, homophobic, or misogynistic? Still less anyone's going to put their head above the parapet and say that Trump had made a good point last night. And when she said that, she reminded me of a social experiment called the Ash Conformity experiment. I don't know whether... Oh, well, look, here, I'll read from a website called Simply Psychology. Ash used a lab experiment to study conformity, whereby 50 male students from Swarthmore College in the USA participated in a vision test. Using a line judgment task, Ash put a naive participant, that means you've got the group, they're all clued up to what's going on, and then they bring in a stranger who doesn't know what's going on. Ash put a naive participant in a room with seven, it's referred to as stooges here, 7 students who are in on the experiment. The Confederates had agreed in advance what their responses would be when presented with the line task. The real participant, that is the naive stranger, did not know this and was led to believe that the other 7 were also real participants in the test, and it was supposed to be a sight test. So this is the card they were given, and what they were told was this card, which line is the same length here as the line here in this left-hand card. Each person in the room had to state aloud which comparison line, A, B, or C, was most like the target line. The answer is, to anybody reasonable, the answer's obvious. The real participant, that is the stranger, sat at the end of the row. So that's why it was so arranged that they gave their answer last. There were 18 trials in total, and the Confederates gave the wrong answer on 12. It says here trails, but I think they mean trials. It's called the critical trials. Ash was interested to see if the real participant would conform to the majority view. Ash's experiment also had a control condition where there were no Confederates, only real participants. So that is, he got a bunch of, just fresh students in there, or he got, a bunch of Confederates and one naive student. Ash measured the number of times each participant conformed to the majority view. On average, 1/3, just over 1/3 actually, of the participants who were placed in this situation went along and conformed with the clearly incorrect majority on the critical trials. So what happened was they'd all agreed, the Confederates, to say that line A is the same length. And 1/3 of the naive participants agreed with them. Over the 12 critical trials, about 70% of the participants conformed at least once. That is, so they were given several tests, and it looks like they just got tired of going against the crowd, and they conformed to the wrong idea at a rate of 75% of them. Fortunately, there were 25% who did not conform. Yeah, in the control group, with no pressure to conform, less than 1% of the participants gave the wrong answer. So Ash came up with the conclusions. Why did the participants conform so readily? When they were interviewed after the experiment, most of them said that they did not really believe their conforming answers, but had gone along with the group for fear of being ridiculed or thought peculiar. A few of them said they really did believe the group's answers were correct. Apparently, people conform for 2 main reasons: because they want to fit in with the group, and because they believe the group is better informed than they are. Does this sound familiar? Now, this last bit says, one is a criticism of the test. One limitation of the study is that it used a biased sample. All the participants were male students who all belonged to the same age group. This means that the study lacks population validity and that the results cannot be generalized to females or older groups of people. But, it's a point, but it's not what we're talking about here, because it fits the profile. The media people are all a single group. Most of them have been to similar colleges. Many of them are of the same age, and they all have the same sort of educational and social backgrounds. And if they don't, they pretend they do. So they say that this means the study has low ecological validity. I don't think it has. Right, so that's the test. Now, it takes a brave soul to swim against that sort of stream, and that's why all sorts of internet blogs, well, to a fairly low extent mine, but there are many others that have much wider circulation, and they are very important. They're vital, because if you dissent, you have to know that there are others who dissent, that you're not peculiar, as it's said in the post-experiment debriefings. You mustn't keep quiet. You're going to be unpopular with some people, and some people are going to think you're peculiar, but you never know. You never know who's listening to you. And so you'll get people, I get people making comments about my lack of wit, but I get other people telling me I'm right. And that helps me. And I'm hoping that occasionally I will reach somebody else who thinks, yes, there's somebody else who thinks that way. And that gives them some comfort. And I'm doing this through the internet, but you can do it through just talking out in your church, your social group, your evening class, whatever it is. I don't mean grabbing people by the throat and, shaking them. I just mean telling people that you have an opinion which may differ from the main. So long as it's not going to get you beaten up, of course, you have to be a bit careful about that. And you have to let people know that they haven't lost their wits, that they're not peculiar, that there is another view, and that those two lines aren't the same. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.